Well, welcome back, fellas, to another episode of BGO Blind Pig, courtesy of bgmsession.com. It's a pleasure ish to be with you guys.
Fuck you too.
Get that right. And the horse you rode in on.
This is going to be a good one tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
As we participate in our counseling session, the digital roundtable where we share our feelings and participate in some numbing activity.
It's actually square, but I'm just saying.
I know, whatever. It's digital too, so who cares? But anyways, quick intros, real quick. Top left is Mark. He hails his own. Bottom left is Bob. He hails as Neophyte. Bottom right is John. He hails as Boone. Top right, I am Derek. You can find me at Silent Threat. Please come by the board. Mix it up. We've had some new members recently. They are very excited about a backup quarterback, but we still enjoy the conversation and the banter back and forth. I think the board is better off with it. So if you do listen, please don't take it personal. We would rather have the conversation than sit here and agree with each other all the time. So all that said, the matters at hand. I think there is a positive thing we can see from a satellite image, but let's just dig straight into. Let's get things off our chest. I'm going to just open the forum because, guys, I'll probably end up screaming about something in a couple minutes, but help yourself, guys. I'm ready to listen.
Bob, why don't you kick us off this week? Come on, man. Bring it.
I'm not sure why all the coaches left the dressing room with jobs after Sunday's game. I'm just really not. I think we've talked about it every single week. The lack of the ability to make adjustments. Sunday was just embarrassing. I sat in fact, at one point in time, about 10 minutes into the game, my wife looked at me and went, "Do you really want to watch this?" 10 minutes in, and my wife, who is not really a football fan, could see where this was going. And she was absolutely right. When was the last?
You could see it, right? You could see it in the body language on the field.
Somebody tell me, when was the last time we got our asses kicked like that?
Monday Night Football, Michael Vick to Deshaun Jackson.
But you know what? We seem to get one of these every year.
Dallas.
I don't remember one of these last year. Maybe I'm just numb, but I don't remember one of these since Rivera took over.
Not one maybe where one side of the ball was so impotent, right? I mean, so I start the game thinking it looks like having Cam Curl back made a difference because the defense looks a little less disorganized and a little bit more competitive early in the game. Then the offense got on the field. And not from the first play, from the second play, our quarterback and our offensive line looked like they just weren't interested in playing a professional football game, and it never got any better, in my opinion. I mean, he hit a few passes here and there, but my God, he missed open guys, and he had happy feet. I'm talking about our clear all-pro quarterback, Carson Wentz, right now. He didn't look like the same guy I saw the first 2 weeks. I know this is the Carson Wentz that we were afraid we got, and he showed up. I mean, he showed up with his hair on fire and looking for places to fall down and freezing up like a deer in the headlights. And he wasn't getting any help from all the other people that we'll talk about.
I was going to say, I don't want to disagree with that, but at the same token, it occurred to me earlier today that I watched 4 guys that are usually like sure-handed, glue-handed guys have balls go right through their hands. Mm-hmm. McKissick, McLaren, Samuels, and Dotson all dropped easy balls. And we're not talking, sure touchdown, 50-yard touchdown balls, but easy balls.
Drive changers. They were drive changers.
Yeah, that stalled things.
Bob, to answer your question, last year Buffalo smacked us around pretty good.
Okay, fair.
Not really. Didn't want to report that, but it happened. But yeah, they were drive changing plays. Dotson dropped one on the sideline. McLaurin watched one go right through his hands. It comes. You talk about Wentz. When I see stuff like that, that comes back to coaching.
Yeah.
Again, for the second week in a row, we watched the team want it more than we did. You know what I mean? And I don't see how you can argue that, regardless of the play on, like, the execution on the field. They wanted it more than we did. We were watching our linemen get just manhandled at the line of scrimmage. We were watching our D linemen get pushed around. We were in after the first quarter. The first quarter, I'll give our defense some credit. They looked solid for the first quarter. They just happened to only give up 400 yards in the final 3 quarters of the game. Not all 4 of them. You know, let's average 133 instead of 100 per quarter. So it comes back to coaching. I watched Scott Turner routinely drop 7 with 5 men blocking 4 down linemen that are getting beat up all day long. I watched McKissick go out on multiple swing routes without hitting a guy on his way out of the backfield. Put as much as you want on Wentz, but how much are we doing to actually give him the tools to succeed? How much are we calling a game to actually set him up to be successful with the team that's around him? Is he perfect? No. But Jesus Christ.
It was like systemic failure, right? We came in with an awful offensive game plan, clearly. We did 0 to adjust. So, I mean, you can go right from the top on down. I'm going to tell you, by the end of the night, I'll probably have said this 10 times, but I am right on the edge of wondering if Mr. Rivera is even the same Mr. Rivera he was in Carolina back when he became a guy who you'd want to bring in as your coach. Love him as a man, love what he's done for the culture. But I've seen enough now where the overall vibe of the team when it hits the field and the unaccountability, the inability to get his offensive and defensive coaches in tune with their players, something's missing. Something's really missing. And it shows from the minute they walk on the field. You got individual guys who are playing hard, but this is not, what's the old expression of a bunch of guys pulling on the same rope?
Right.
That ain't happening.
All right. Playing the part of Paul tonight is apparently John, who's being incredibly quiet. I think he's saving the rage, dude. What's going through your head?
Well, you know, my mom,
If you can't say something nice.
old Kentucky girl, she must have said it 1,000 times growing up. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Well, John,
So that's first and foremost.
that would really make for a boring ass podcast, buddy. Let's just be honest.
But also,
So
be not
here's
very
the thing.
cathartic.
And please, and so I guess I listened to the game, right? I was actually driving down from DC back to where I live in Carolina through some hellacious thunderstorms, but I listened to the whole damn thing. And I will say this, it sounded worse than it looked when I watched it. It actually, believe it or not,
That
it
must have been
sounded a
really
lot
bad.
yeah. Because what I saw a lot of is just a lot of almost, you know, the throws were just off a little bit, just behind McLaurin, just out of reach. They almost made blocks. They just a lot of that kind of thing. I actually thought the offense and defense started okay. Like the defense I saw a lot of movement to the ball, I saw defensive backs knocking passes down, which I have. It's the first game I saw Fuller and St. Juste especially, and Holcomb. All 3 of those guys were making plays. We looked decent to start. And even the first offensive drive before it fell apart, we had some success. We actually rolled Carson out a couple of times. So why we didn't do that after that, I don't know. But, you know, so it wasn't all bad at the outset. But I guess what I want to say is, rather than perseverating on all the ways it was horrific, because it pretty much was, I just can't understand why we can't have all 3 units of the team show up for a single game. Because if you look at the season so far, in the Jags game, the offense looked like we were going to be world beaters all year long. I mean, we were scoring touchdowns at will. I don't know how many yards we had, but we moved the ball all over the field. And it was supposed to be the Jags that were going to do that to us. But the defense was bad. I mean, the Jags almost came back and beat us. In the second game against the Lions, the offense only played for a half of the game. They looked pretty good when they decided to play, but the special teams were god awful. The special teams alone cost us that game, just their performance. And then this past weekend, again, I'm not going to beat on the defense as much as a lot of people are, but I mean, they weren't good for the duration of the game, but at least they showed up. And I saw effort, and I saw some, you know, desire, and guys making plays occasionally. I just think by the second half, they were just flat worn out. But the offense, I mean, and special teams had a pretty decent game overall.
Special teams coverage, kick coverage was the best we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
And we're getting a hell of a lot of practice punting the ball. So that was pretty good. But the offense was just absolutely ineffective. Like there was, and I think I said last week. Go ahead.
But it wasn't ineffective. Every time that we ran the ball, we were gashing them for 5, 7, 10, 11, 14, 12. Go back. If you go back and you actually look at the drive, you go play by play and you look at the drive log, almost every drive, there is an effective run play. There was one
but we didn't stick with it is the point.
I know, that's my point. That's the problem.
I don't get it either, because that's what I saw when I rewatched it. Now there were times where we rushed it backwards for 10 yards in critical situations. But I mean, for the most part, when we ran, we had success. So I don't have any answers. But I do think the fact that we can't seem to get we're lucky if we can get 2 of the 3 units to show up and play at a pro level. And I don't care who you are, and I don't care how good any of your units plays individually. If you don't play solidly across the board, you're not going to win many games.
I don't understand our inability to come out of the game, come out of the locker room ready to play. You guys are going to laugh at this. It feels like Mr. Stay Medium is still in the house, and the whole team comes out medium. We don't want to get too excited about this, right? It's just another football game. It's another day at the office. Well, the other team's excited. Guess what, guys? The other team's excited. The other team is looking to punch somebody in the mouth. Ask Charles Leno. Ask Cosme. The other team came off the ball and punched both of them in the mouth. That first, they had 4 sacks on Carson Wentz before I went to get the second beer.
Yep. We should get into the nitty gritty on that. I think we all agree that there's something missing in terms of team identity, as in, I don't know what it is, and I don't think they know what it is either. I think we talked about this last week. There's a distinct lack of leadership. Clearly on the field, there's not a lot of leadership, and the evidence suggests there's not a lot of leadership off the field in the locker room either, because the team keeps coming out flat and it takes them a half to get going. And then it's competitive after that. Once you're down 24-0, the other team's willing to let you hang with them, I guess. But so the coaching thing is clearly a problem. In terms of the on-field stuff and Wentz and what really stood out to me in this game, and I guess to me it's the story of the game, other than that they weren't prepared to play, is our quarterback looked to me right from the very first couple of snaps like he had happy feet, like he just wasn't reading the field and going down. He wasn't looking at anywhere other than first read's not there, and he started dancing and getting happy feet. I didn't see that the first 2 weeks, and that's a concern. Part of it was the pressure he was getting. Our guys up front were getting killed. I watched Norwell some on the all 22s earlier today because I wanted to see what the hell was going on. He looked like he was in slow motion. He's barely getting out of his stance half the time on pass pro, and people are just running uncontested on one-on-ones through our offensive linemen. I think Wentz can't help but see that too, right? And that doesn't make him feel any better back there. But there were at least a half a dozen plays in the first half I saw where Carson dropped, and I'm watching the rush coming, and it looks like in the NFL. It looks like a good pass rushing team getting some pressure, and Carson would have what looked like a place to step and maybe move, and he just wouldn't do it. He just was kind of stick. He'd be a beat late moving, and then it's on him and down he goes, and that just built on itself. We have a team coming. We're going down to play a team on the road next week that rushes the passer like that. If that Carson Wentz shows up again, it ain't going to be pretty.
He definitely had. I mean, I think he started okay. The first series, if you go back and watch it, he made some plays. He didn't look panicked, but after the first couple of sacks, when he was holding on to the ball way too long, and I agree with you, Mark, it was almost like he was afraid to make a mistake. And he just got frozen and it did. I mean, they did a great job. They were just more aggressive than us. The one thing that, just to tie into what you were talking about, Mark, that I've thought about a lot this week is our depth this season is not what it was at some critical places, and O-line is one of them. We let some guys go, and I know all about the contract stuff, but I think we have this sense, the coaches seem to have this sense, or the front office does, that we can just plug anyone in there after the starters and coach them up. And we've seen that before, because they'll bring in no names off the street. We have guys on the practice squad that we've been hanging on to for 6 months, but we'll bring in guys off the street and play them, not elevate the practice squad guys. I've seen that over and over, and we're still doing it, by the way. I just don't understand. I think we got ourselves in a situation on the D line, which we had strengths, especially at backups on the D line, on the O line, in particular, and even linebacker. Because say what you want about Collins, but Collins was at least a professional athlete who could generally show some effort out there.
Once they found once they found his position and let him play it.
Mm-hmm.
So we let all these guys who knew the system, who were competent, and we let them all go, and we've backfilled them with guys that, in my opinion, so far don't look like they're of the same caliber, or else maybe they're just so unfamiliar that we're not going to see him play decently till the last quarter of the season. But to me, and I know that doesn't explain everything. It certainly doesn't. But that, to me, in year 3 of a rebuild, and you're creating weaknesses that you didn't have coming into this season or last year, you're actually creating weaknesses while you're supposedly building the team. And I don't understand what they're thinking.
Yeah, but all right, John, at the same token, we all sat in these same seats in January and talked about what this team had to do to get better, what this team had to do to go from 7 wins to 10 wins or 11 wins or 12 wins and get into the playoffs and be a competitive, legit playoff team. And the number one thing every single guy in this podcast said was get a real quarterback. Last year, our starting quarterback made $2 million. That was his cap hit last year. Something had to change. Do you know what we have for cap space right now? I went and looked.
3.5.
2.5.
Okay.
2.5 is what we have for cap space right now. Eric Flowers wanted more than that by himself. So we let Eric Flowers walk, and we bring in Norwell, who's not just a Pro Bowl player, but he's been an All-Pro. So we let Scherf go, and we bring in another All-Pro, but different sides of the line. But you think, hey, this ought to be all right, except for the fact that this guy looks like he's done. He does not look like he's got anything left in the tank to me.
Well, the point I would make is other teams have the same cap that we have to live with, and a lot of other teams figure out how to manipulate it and how not to take strong points of your team when you're trying to get something going finally in year 3 and create more problems for yourselves. I just don't understand that. And I know you can't sign everyone. The players have a choice where they sign. I get all that, but I guess, to be as fair as I can be, if this was the best you could do, your best isn't very good so far.
It's funny. I think the league has changed so much, and I hadn't thought about this before. But it occurs to me listening to you talk, Bob, about the quarterback thing. And I'm thinking about the league and how pass rushing teams are everywhere. I mean, pass rushing is at a premium, and I'm starting to go down the list and think about the teams that are up and coming. They all have something very comparable at quarterback that we don't have. And that's someone who has really got good pocket presence and can move, because that pass rush is coming. And we've got a guy, at least this week, who's kind of a dinosaur, right? He couldn't move out of his own way. No, I don't think Taylor Heineke is the answer long-term, but he would have been better in this game because of his mobility. He would have been able to get out and get some first downs.
I would have made a change at halftime.
Yeah, I would.
Not necessarily permanently, not for the year, but I would have told Carson, look, we've got to change something up. We can't afford to just drop the game and take a loss at halftime. We've got to change something.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've never subscribed to the whole thing that you can't take a quarterback out and bullshit. I'm pulling him out.
You're having a bad day. You're having a bad day. Sit and think about it. And
like you do with every other position on your team.
I think the dinosaur in the room is is the fact that this was Philadelphia. You know, Mark, you said something to start this whole thing off about this didn't look like the same Carson Wentz.
It didn't.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think for whatever reason, and to a degree, I kind of understand, Carson didn't want to make him. Carson was afraid of making a mistake in front of the old team. Normally, he's really happy to throw that football out there. And if somebody gets a hand on it, somebody gets a hand on it. I mean, and he doesn't show any fear the next time around either, but he looked hesitant and tentative to begin with. And I can't help but wonder if being in front of the old team didn't have more of an impact in this particular instance. The way he left, the way Jalen Hurts kind of was, I don't know, out professional him. If did anybody see the pregame interview with Jalen Hurts, or maybe it went at halftime? I forget when I saw it. There was the whole thing about Jalen Hurts and everything that he did last year or 2 years ago as a rookie, last guy out there on the field, going through the reps with the assistant coaches, just like he was a first team guy, all on his own, by himself. Everybody in the team, and somebody, you know what? I read it. Somebody from Philadelphia said, look, I love Carson. I thought he was a great guy, but I feel like he spent more time looking over his shoulder than he did looking forward.
Bob, I didn't like
that year.
I didn't like the week leading up to the game. Wentz said, I heard him say it to three different people throughout the week, that this was just another game.
Yep.
He wasn't focused on any of that, and it was just another game. And it's like, it's not just another game. You're playing the team that shit canned you and moved on, and you're playing the guy who took over for you. I guess at some level, I understand he's trying to say, I'm just gonna focus on the job at hand, and I'm not gonna get myself worked up. But for those people that have said for like the last 6 months, Washington fans, that he can't handle the pressure and he's a choke artist, they're happy this week, because that's what it looked like on Sunday.
Yeah.
It fed into that narrative.
Well, we had this conversation when he came, and I can't remember exactly where everybody was on it, but he was not I don't want to relitigate this, and I'm not saying that he's done, right? I just want to, the Carson Wentz that we saw on Sunday was the one I was afraid we were getting. Well, he might not be that. He might not be that next week. We got a lot of season to go, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, about how the season isn't over by a long shot, and we'll make that case.
We probably just got our asses kicked by the NFC East champion.
We were unprepared to play for again. That's, to me, really even the bigger problem than Carson Wentz was how unprepared we looked schematically. And in the ability where Bob started to make adjustments on the fly. Once it ain't working, it's like we have no plan B that we're ready to jump into.
And I get frustrated with the fact that there apparently isn't a plan B until halftime. Why can't we fucking make adjustments in the middle of the first quarter? I'm sorry, Charles Leno's getting his ass handed to him out there, and we can't make an adjustment on the fly to chip with McKissick out of the backfield, or shift the protection in some way, shape, or form. Granted, I don't know why Charles was getting his ass handed to him. Maybe Schweitzer's making the wrong call at the line, and we're really missing Rallier, right? Maybe we're in the wrong protection. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it just doesn't seem like this coaching staff can make an adjustment between one series and the next. And part of this is pretty simple. It's Scott Turner looking at what's going on and saying, all right, 5 and 7 step drops are too much. We need to do 3-step drops and quick hitches. And, oh, by the way, Gibson just ripped off 12 yards on one running play. Maybe I should hammer him with Gibson for a few plays and then try play action. I don't know, but it just seems like common sense to me. And like
Jonathan Williams was making plays out there,
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys felt watching. I don't know if you watched or listened to the Rivera presser afterwards, but I'm getting sick of hearing him say the following phrases: we've got to play better. This is a young group that's learning and growing, and give them credit. Those are his three favorite things to say. And he really had no, to me, he looked irritated that he was having to answer all these questions. And the only animated response that I saw was when somebody asked him about the Jimmy Garoppolo rumor, because I think it was like, well, what are you saying? I'm a liar that he got fired up. That was the only damn thing he got fired up about. It's like, how about the fact that you got 24 effing points dropped on your ass in one quarter and really couldn't score a point until you got to get the gimme, end of the game gimme range. I just don't understand. And Mark alluded to it before. It's like, dude, you might not get to come back next year if you keep it up. I mean, it's that bad right now. I think that it's one thing to lose. It's one thing to lose. We know we're used to losing, more than we win. But to lose the way we've lost the last 2 weeks, that is not gonna lead to a long, fruitful career as head coach.
Yeah, I hinted at this before. I'm actually really starting to wonder if Ron is all in. Maybe he's not all the way better. I don't think he's got. I just don't see a top-down kind of vibe from this team where you have some sense of they're trying to be something. I don't think they know what they're trying to be, and I'm kind of starting to be afraid that's coming from Ron. And I was defending him and defending Scott Turner even up to a week ago, up to a point. But in this game, this is week 3, right? In week 1, we had the middle half of the game where we kind of fell apart, but we rallied and finished strong. But the last 2 weeks have been brutal.
I said it last week at this time. Until you start winning games, get the fuck off Good Morning Football appearances. Stop worrying about Puerto Rico, whatever the hell that guy spends more time doing things that have nothing to do with winning the game on Sunday. And I love delegation. That's great. But Joe Gibbs slept in his office all week before games. I don't think Ron Rivera's missed an 8-hour night yet. And I'm sorry. I like Ron Rivera. I think he's a good man, but he's right now, man, it's a pretty sorry.
So you just kind of, one of you just hit on something. Year 1, we lost a lot of football games. I didn't leave any of those football games feeling embarrassed about the effort.
We also won the division, just saying.
I know, but we still lost a lot of football. We won the division with a losing record. We were 7-9.
But you can see we wanted it. Every game we wanted it.
Right. And that's my point. Every game I saw the effort in every single guy. I saw the pain when the effort wasn't enough. When the other team, did something and, beat it and a mistake was made. I could see the pain. These guys look numb right now. They just look numb. Like it doesn't, like there's no impact whatsoever. I see no fire, no spit, and no piss and vinegar, to quote my dad. I just don't understand.
I'll take. I mean, there are certain players that you can see who are busting their asses out there,
right?
But what you don't see is a unit working together, like they're on the same page, like they've been coached up on the same page. And I know my son is jumping out of his skin right now because we were texting earlier today. And he's 1,000. He said 1,000% he's on the coaching right now. I'm not going 1,000%, but I think our players are less than the sum of the parts right now. I think our players are better than what they look like. It's the coach's job to get your players on the same page and make them at least the sum of their parts, if not, more than the sum. The good teams you get that synergy going where you're building something. I'm not seeing us building anything at this point. And that's really scary 3 weeks into a season.
And we're beat up all to hell already. And going into week 4. And that goes back to my original point, which was our backup qualities this year are not what they were. So now we're relying on we had guys out there that have only been on the team for 2 weeks. In week 3. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've never been on our trainers and physical staff suck train ever, because I think that's kind of ridiculous. But it's just, and that's not an excuse in any way. But
okay, John,
nothing is going right now. Nothing.
So all right. So I want to double back on something. You say we might have just got our asses kicked by the NFC East champs. We might have just gotten our asses kicked by the NFC champs. It's that real. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you look at the broad landscape in the NFC, Philly might be the team representing the NFC, or at least in the NFC Championship. Who are you going to put out there that really gives them a hard time? So there's that. To follow up real quick on the play calling, because we do, Bob, you talked about the coaching or Bob talked about setting us up to fail because we're running. This is a drive. All right, second quarter. This is our second drive of the second quarter. This is the game log. Okay, at this point, it's 10-0. Game is not anywhere near out of hand. First play from scrimmage, 7-yard run, Antonio Gibson, right tackle, to the Washington 32. Second play, Carson Wentz scrambles off the right end for 2 yards. Third play, 6-yard run to Jonathan Williams. It's now a first down. Fourth play, Carson Wentz incomplete short right to Dotson. I think that's the one that went off Dotson's hands, I believe. Next play, run for no gain. Curtis Samuel left end on a jet sweep that I believe, if I'm remembering the play, it was a miracle he got back to the line of scrimmage because that play was blown up from the beginning. Then the fourth play, passing complete, Carson Wentz deep right to Dotson. We've run 3 effective passing plays for a first down, then we don't hand the ball up again the rest of the drive. What are we doing? This is where we're not setting each other up. We're not setting up the team in the offense to be successful. Carson Wentz was having a bad day. Guess what you do? You take the ball out of Carson Wentz's hands. You don't put the game on his shoulders, and you use what is working, even if you don't take it out of his hands. Even if you
running
don't
jet
park
sweeps
him.
when there's defenders in the backfield, deep in the backfield on every single play. That's
right.
That's
the
another
other thing is,
questionable.
guys, I'm not, look, I know this is a new NFL compared to what we grew up with, what I grew up with, what we all grew up with. But what's the easiest way to lessen the burden of a beat up offensive line? You run the ball and you get them moving forward instead of backward. If Charles Leno is getting beat play after play after play, but you're effectively running the ball, continue to have him moving forward, not back in pass pro. That's like that. Every coach that is worth their shit right now has that mentality. You can see it when the Chiefs, when the Bucks, when the Rams, when the best teams in the NFL are struggling in pass protection, they run the football because you got to get your O lineman going forward instead of backwards. It changes the entire dynamic of it, even though it's not a running league anymore.
And they help also, Derek, as I know you've said too, to run the ball and to not take those 5. We keep saying the same things over and over, right? Not 5 and 7 step drops aren't working. You're going to have to. The good quarterbacks take the 1 step, right? And you flare it out, or you run the quick slants, or you run the screens, even though we suck at screens.
Well, the good offensive coordinators do that also.
The coordinator is part of I think, of our coaching failure overall this week. That was just.
It just seems like stubbornness at some level. I think that it's true on both sides of the ball for us. Is we seem to, and maybe this is not the case, but from 1,000 yards away, it looks like we know what we're doing. This is what we do, and we're not gonna deviate from it.
That would almost be better than one of the alternatives, which would be is we don't know what the hell to do.
So I want to mention the 65-yard non-pass catch, the non-reception that was called a reception.
Yeah.
Where Philadelphia manages to scramble all the way down the field, 65 yards downfield, and get a playoff before Rivera can make up his mind on whether to pull a red flag out of his pocket.
I was trying to remember if I have ever seen that before in the NFL.
That is indicative of something. I'm not sure what, but it's a problem that you're not engaged enough in the situation to realize, you know what, if I lose a timeout, I lose a timeout, but they just got 65-yard gain that might come right back if I throw this flag. Yeah. You have to throw that flag. And who cares what the guy upstairs thinks? You have to throw the flag in that scenario. And I felt like that was the death knell for us on that play, because it just took all whatever waning hope and momentum we might have been able to salvage just went right out the window.
And I gotta say it, in real time, I saw that play. I was 100% sure that was not a catch.
So did I said in the chat.
In real time, I'm like, oh, that's not a catch. And then I'm shocked when he makes the call. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll challenge it. Only the Commanders get that. That's only a complete pass against the Commanders. I don't know what the ref is looking at. He's right there. It was clearly not a catch. On the replay, the very first replay, you could see it wasn't a catch. And I'm with you, John. I've been wondering about that all week. Where, Ron, did he say something about it being stuck in his belt? Or am I making that? I thought I heard somebody say that.
No, all I've heard was that he was waiting on information.
Yeah, well, that's not a good situation
at
there.
some time,
Yeah.
you just have to make up your mind and go for it. I mean,
Just-
this is the guy they call Riverboat Ron, and he's not going to gamble with the flag. Give me a break.
Yeah, no, that was not a good moment, but it was so indicative, right? And I lasted a little longer than that watching it live. Thank God for NFL Red Zone, gentlemen, because I watched until it was about, I think it's towards the end of the first quarter, and it's apparent to me that everything we touched was just turned into shit. So I started going back and forth on the NFL. It's just so much easier not to try to watch it live. And I'd go back and watch it. And like a good soldier, I've watched it twice now in condensed versions since, so I can actually speak to certain plays.
So
But-
just on a related note, I just wanted on the record, Devontae Smith is a man.
That is a man.
That guy made some catches. I just couldn't believe some of the catches he
Good,
made.
good ball player.
Yeah, but he also got 65 yards for nothing. I mean, I was critical in the forums. That'd be bgobsession.com for anybody that hasn't figured it out yet. I was critical in the forums about the fact that, a defense that started looking like maybe it was going to play a little better gave up a whole game's worth of offense to two guys in basically the second quarter. But you take 65 yards away from Devontae Smith and he still has a full game in the second quarter, but it's not quite as good a full game. It's not a game he gets a bonus check for. 154 yards. The dude had 154 yards receiving before halftime.
A lot of those catches, Champ Bailey could not have prevented. I'm just saying that was like the ones that we got burned on. There were only a couple of passing plays, I felt like, where we just left somebody uncovered or somebody didn't know who they were supposed to be covering, or they got really beat badly when they shouldn't have. The catches he made, most of them, I don't think any corner could have stopped because they were perfect throws.
Well, except for the one where Jackson just inexplicably lost his feet in the end zone and just fell on his butt. But I can't get too mad. He was in position. It was one of those weird fluky things. Another thing I want to mention on Devontae Smith, there was a play, and I want to say it was in the third quarter. So obviously we were already down double digits. And I hate to continue to come back to coaching, but this time I'll put my crosshairs on Jack Del Rio, where a fan favorite, Kendall Fuller, was in coverage and he got beat. And I think Smith caught it on a drag route. And you could visibly see that Fuller was jogging. There was no emphasis on his sprinting to try to catch up to the ball carrier. He was flat jogging. And I'm going to try to pull it up on it. And I hate to call him out because everybody likes Fuller. You know what I mean? I think we were all happy to see him back here. But there was no emphasis. Absolutely no emphasis on urgency. It's like, are these guys really coming into this game thinking, oh, we're down 22, we can't win? Like, this offense, as bad as it has been, is still as explosive of an offense as we've had in Washington in how long? There's a stat.
But in fairness, Derek, our offense didn't look like it was going to get it going at that point. I had no faith. I had none.
Does that mean that you stop?
No, it doesn't. And I'm not that kind of guy, but and there's no excuse for it. But at the same token, I said this in the forums too. While somebody would have left the coach's dressing room with a pink slip on Sunday, JDR would have gotten a pink slip in the offseason. I don't believe the man can keep up with NFL defenses or offenses today. I just don't. I remember when Gibbs came back and Gibbs said the very first thing I did was have Williams draw up his favorite blitz on a whiteboard so I could try and figure out how to counter it. And I realized they needed some help that was in the league today. immediately. The Hall of Fame coach who got there with offense looked at one exotic blitz and went, I need help. Del Rio doesn't know how to draw up an exotic blitz anymore. And he's totally reliant on a system that appears to be ridiculously complicated. And he's doing it with guys who have minimal football IQ because they drafted an amazing physical specimen who had 1 year of football under his belt. One. And now they're mad at him because
I want him to get mad at everyone else. Like, start calling out 2 or 3 defenders a week on social media, because that was the best game Jamin Davis has played in Washington. I mean, so that's kind of the irony of that.
Did you see that play when Hurts was rolling right in almost a full sprint? There were 2 defensive linemen trailing, and out of nowhere, here comes Davis. And Hurts couldn't have bailed out faster than my 5-year-old when she's running away from me with her cell phone, with my cell phone in her hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, he went down to the ground and said, nope, not gonna do it. Why are we not using that guy like that?
Well, why are we discovering in game, because it's an emergency substitute, that the guy is better on the outside than he is, in the slot? Or they sounded mystified that, wow, he can play outside.
Well, I'm still watching every week as most of our base defensive sets, he's still relying on our 4 down linemen to get the pressure. And you go back and watch I'm not making this up. Go back and watch the every time we did that, our guys they're not getting home. The Eagles were getting home when they brought 4 guys over and over and over. We were not.
Did you watch the movement on their defensive front? They're moving
push,
guys
man.
around, and post snap, those guys are coming from every angle.
That's correct, Bob, but they're also just bull rushing and winning one-on-one and out quicking us. I mean, both sides of our line got manhandled.
And
the defense was better this week, and
The
they
DBs were better. And St. Just is who I was referring to. St. Just played, at least for most of the game, played a great game.
He was good. He's a good outside corner playing the slot.
Well, all of us have asked at least once in the last 2 years, why is Kendall Fuller playing outside?
Yeah.
And why is St. Just playing in the slot?
Why are we really good on the outside?
Guys?
It may have been Logan Thomas. Somebody, I'm not going to take credit for this, but someone I was listening to on Monday or Tuesday was talking about the guy that nobody is talking about is Bobby McCain, and that making the case, and it kind of made sense when I went back and looked at the tape again today. Quarterbacks are not afraid to go over the middle against us. Bobby McCain is a good, solid player, and when the play is there for him, he's pretty good at making it. But he is not a guy that quarterbacks are afraid to test over the middle. And once I had that in my head and I started watching, it's really kind of true. He's a good, scrappy player, and when he's there, he tends to make the play, but he's just not there. Doesn't have the range or the instincts or the hand-eye. And there were about a half a dozen plays I saw again today where, oh yeah, that's McCain flashing in a step late, and teams are throwing against us with impunity over the middle.
And Cam Carroll's clearly not 100%.
No, he's not.
Well, you start to hope that when Curl is back to 100%, you start to see more of a Curl Forrest combination. You know what I mean? I think that can be a much more effective combination than McCain.
I agree, and I think having Curl back helped with the organization in the back. We still got beat and had guys running open, but not as repeatedly as in the last couple of weeks. I think having him back made a difference. And to circle back, I meant to say this earlier when one of you brought up Chase Roulier. Maybe the offensive line, even when they weren't getting beat just one-on-one, not having their signal caller in there might have made a difference too. It's really important to have somebody making the calls who knows it, and the quarterback is on the same page as the center, knowing what the protections are. All that's the kind of stuff that we don't know about, but may well have been a factor.
I'm really nervous about Dallas because they have I think they're leading the league in sacks.
Even after Philadelphia hung 42 of them on us?
We don't know who, I'm not sure what the configuration of the O-line is going to be in Dallas.
Don't either.
I'm not
But
sure.
I know what we
Joe-
are going to see. I know we're going to see DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons bouncing all over the place. You're never going to know where they're coming from, but they're coming. They are coming. And Carson's he better be looking downfield and not watching this rush coming, or it could get really ugly again.
You know, those guys sat in their position meetings today, and the coaches brought up the tape of Philadelphia just eating us alive and said, "Hey, these guys
Do
are
that.
old. The Philadelphia guys are old. Graham's been in the league 13 years. What should you guys be doing against them?"
I think Micah's going to be all over the place.
Oh yeah, they're licking their chops. They're absolutely licking their chops. Their offense may or may not be there, but I guarantee you, Micah Parsons and Lawrence are going to be in the backfield all day long. And if Scott Turner doesn't figure out how to hand that football off to Gibson and let an offensive lineman punch somebody in the mouth run blocking, it's going to be a really ugly day for us.
Yep. So before we get too into Dallas, I have to do this because all we've done is doom and gloom, and that certainly seems like a defensible place to be coming from right now. But let me read off this list of teams to you. The Commanders are 1-2. The other teams in the NFL, there are 16 teams in the NFL with similar or worse records than we have. Let me name some of them to you. These first 7 being the main point. Patriots, 1-2. Steelers, 1-2. The defending AFC champion Bengals, 1-2. Tennessee Titans, 1-2. San Francisco 49ers, 1-2. Arizona Cardinals, 1-2. LA. Las Vegas Raiders, 0-3. Here's some other 1-2 teams: the San Diego Chargers, the Detroit Lions, the Saints, the Panthers, the Falcons, the Seahawks, and the Texans are 0-2-1. Point being, none of those teams think their season is over. None of them do. I'm hoping that their fans know. What I haven't done is gone back and seen. I bet you in LA, I did it again. The Las Vegas fans right now, their team is 0-3, and they were expected to be a contender in the AFC in the AFC West. I don't know if any other teams have lost as ugly as we lost this week, but the point is we are 3 games into a 17-game season, and it is possible that this thing turns around again. And we were we 2-6 when we won the division before last time, right?
Each of the last 2 times.
The only thing that gives me hope, honestly, is that Rivera, you were right, Mark, even in Carolina, Rivera, for every one really good season, you had to suffer through 3 that weren't good.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what that's the trend so far here. The only thing that gives me solace is his teams almost always play better as the season progresses, almost always. But they better not wait until, the midpoint in the season, because.
And the other thing I want to point out, to your point, Mark, and I shared a little bit of this on the pod or on the board. I'm going to read off a couple team names also, and we rate higher than this in a certain metric of plays.
I like it. I've got something similar over here. You go.
The Buccaneers, the Rams, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, the defending Super Bowl AFC champions Bengals, the Chargers, the Vikings, the Cardinals, and then the more. We have more big plays offensively than those teams do. 8 rushes of 10 or more yards and 11 receptions of 20 or more yards. Rates higher than all of those teams. So back to what I was saying earlier, Bob, is this team should never truly believe that they're out of it, because this offense can be explosive. When Scott Turner dials up the right thing, I think it's there. You know what I mean? And whether the game flow dictates that it is or not, we watched this game, the team against Detroit, get manhandled for 2.5 quarters and then decide they want to show up. And with the blink of an eye, we were within 7 points. I should have been 7 points. Sorry. Within 8 points if we hadn't gone for 2 for some god awful reason. I think that can happen in any game this year. And I think the defense needs to remember that and play that way. That at any given time, this team can hang 24 on somebody in a quarter. It's capable. I think if Obviously, it's going to take a lot from Scott Turner. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that when we're playing with our backs against the wall, out of desperation, this team plays differently. How do we get this team to play desperate from the minute of opening kickoff instead of waiting until they don't have a choice?
Does this team ever play desperate? Have we seen it play desperate under Rivera? I'm not sure we have.
I don't think so.
We've had some solid games,
I-
but it doesn't
I
seem
thought
like
that game, I expected to see fake punts on as badly as we were getting our ass kicked in that Eagles game. I'm kind of like, you got to do something, do an onside kick, fake a punt, do something to get the momentum back on your side. And it was obvious
What do we-
were
we
gonna
called
lose
a-
that game
We
from
called a
after the second quarter.
we called a bullshit flea flicker double reverse pass Superman heave ho at some point when we were down.
So I just want to bring up one other point. Just because you can make electric downfield plays
doesn't
doesn't
mean
mean
that's all you do.
because we have yet to attempt a field goal. Were you guys aware of that? Joey Sly has not kicked a field goal. He hasn't made one. He hasn't missed one. He hasn't kicked one. What the hell? That's got to represent something, right? Like,
We
Yeah,
have
the
the most
best-
productive red zone offense in the NFL right
The
now.
best red
just
zone
never
offense
there.
in the league. It's there.
or we are there and we get stopped on the 1 foot line on 4th down.
But we don't. We going into we have one of the best red zone offenses in the
Yeah.
NFL.
No, there are some stats there that show that we are competitive in a lot of areas. I was surprised at some of them, but
Right.
like our 3rd down defense is 5th in the NFL. And then I started thinking, well, yeah, it's because we give up first downs on 1st and 2nd down. We don't have to get to 3rd down.
And the only time it's 3rd down is we're down by 24.
Yeah, and it's only 3 games in, so it's kind of a meaningless stat. Some of the stats that aren't meaningless, by the way, are again in turnovers. We're 29th in the league in
That is
turnover
what I wanted
ratio,
to touch
We're
on.
not taking the ball away.
and
One.
we're giving it away.
Have we have forced one turnover, and it was an errant Trevor Lawrence pass.
Yeah, it was a desperation heave at the end of the game. Yeah,
Right.
we haven't really even been close to causing turnovers. We're not causing fumbles and failing to recover them. We're not causing fumbles at
Well,
all.
I think we've dropped at least 3 interceptions.
There
Yeah.
were a couple of Jalen Hurts passes in that game Sunday where he just floated it out to the sideline, and the cornerback sat there and watched I think the corners are so afraid of getting beat after the catch that they're not even attempting to go after the ball. There was one I could have intercepted. All he had to do was take 2 steps forward, and it was right in his hands. And I think it's more of a mentality, like they're afraid of being the scapegoat or getting beat deep, or missing a tackle and having the guy go for 50 yards. They're not ball hawking in any stretch of the imagination.
So here's something that stood out at me from early, and it goes to a lot of the things we've been talking about tonight. One play in particular, early, I think it was Philadelphia's first offensive series. We end up with somebody named Wild Goose on the field, and the Eagles see this and they ISO him,
Right after.
and they go right down the field and draw the
For a
PI.
penalty. Yeah.
So, and all I think to myself is, yeah,
It
a
was the
well-coached
second-
team does that, right? They recognize the rube on the field and they go after him.
What happened 4 drives later?
We gave up a touchdown.
No, Darius Slay got hurt and he was on the sideline, and we ran
Oh.
a draw play. Their best
And-
corners on the sideline, and we
Well, I don't know if it was this week or against the Lions, but Rivera, so some scrub made a big play, and Rivera said, "Oh, we didn't even know that guy was on their roster." That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
contrast.
You were talking
There-
about that last week.
They're targeting newcomers, and we don't even know the newcomers are on the field. I mean,
Yeah.
was that was the guy that blew up Milne on a punt kick return, right? Or a punt
Yeah.
return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to go back to the positives, I have a completely different spin on a positive. 38-10. The Jaguars went into LA on the road, won their first game in forever on the road, and made Justin Ebert and the Chargers look like a bunch of chumps. Beat them
Stomped
worse
them.
than Philadelphia beat us. This is a team that just 2 weeks ago couldn't find their head or their ass with both hands in a roadmap in Washington, largely because our guys just kept coming at them.
I'm one guy who's not surprised. I'll give myself a little pat on the back. I said it before the first game. I'm glad we're getting them now because they are going to be a tough out once they get going.
So we were supposed to have one of the easiest NFL schedules this year. I think so far we're in the top 5 most difficult.
Yeah, the Lions are not pushovers. The Jags were not pushovers. And the Eagles might be the best team in the NFL right now. They might. By the way, we did better this week than Minnesota did against them last week. They lost 24-7. So we're on the up. We're 24-8. And by the way, the Eagles put 24 on the Vikings by halftime too. So they're a good team.
You know, here's the thing that I get, and I guess we're kind of going cyclical at this point in time, but I look at Philadelphia's first 2 games of the year, and you have a blueprint for how to play them. Detroit ran the fucking ball and nearly won that game. They were a run first team. We're going to run this until you can stop it team. That first game of the year. Swift had, I forget how many yards Swift had. And then Minnesota with Mr. O'Connell and Kirk Cousins tried to do what? Throw the football at him all night long, try and throw the football at him.
So
who won that? How well did that work out for him?
Our good friend Henry on BGO, who is on BGO, he's Henry. He made the point. He made a great point on Twitter, which is it's fine to love the play action, but if you don't establish the run and a run is not a consistent threat, good luck with play action, especially when they're sending the house or getting pressure on you with 4 down linemen. You know, it goes hand in hand. So it doesn't mean you have to run it 40 times a game, but if you consistently run it, then when you do take a chance going downfield, you're going to have a lot better chance at having some success.
Interesting. I just went to look to see what the Vikings did against the Eagles in terms of rushing last week.
Not a damn thing.
They didn't do a damn thing. Kirk Cousins had 2. They rushed the ball 11 times. This is counting 2 by Kirk for 20 for 62 yards. So their running backs ran 9 for 42. So they weren't paying attention either, John.
But the week before that, Swift had 15 carries for 144 yards.
Well, and we ran the ball on him with some success too.
I don't see Swift as any better than Gibson, if you really want to know the truth. He's a good back, but he doesn't have Gibson's size, and Gibson was ripping some off. And how we didn't just keep, for that matter, how we didn't drop a couple of screen passes to Gibson.
Mm-hmm. We used to throw the ball to McKissick too. We made a living at that last year. But
yeah, where's McKissick been this year?
So Detroit in the opening week of the season ran the ball 28 times for 181 yards, 6.5 yards a carry against Philadelphia. Jared Goff, on the other hand, he was 21 of 37. 37 passes is not, small, but 21 of 37 for 215. It's not like he was throwing deep. His long on the day was, I don't have it. I'll find it. His long on the day was 29 yards.
So are we going to get trucked by a non-Dak led Dallas?
No, I honestly think we'll be their lack of explosion on offense. I think it's not going to be a
in the
blowout.
receiving core, you mean?
No, just their whole offense is not explosive. You know what I don't see them with guys that are going to be running free. I don't see them hanging 22 on us in one quarter.
They do kick field goals though.
That's fine.
So I'm not really worried about
18-12.
Mostly at this point, coming into this one, I'm worried about us going 3 and out 9 times in a row, giving up a strip sack or 2, a pick 6 or whatever, and the defense spending the entire time on the field. The defense, I think, will keep us in the game, but I don't know that the offense is going to be able to make hay at all. That Dallas defense is swarming. and we're going to be playing on the road. It's going to be loud. If Carson from this last game shows up, it ain't going to be pretty. If Carson from the first 2 weeks shows up, we have a game.
I think
we
yeah,
stay
and I
with
think
them.
the recipe that have a chance. The recipe is we got to have that quick hit. Lots of passes to Curtis Samuels. Let him get yards after the catch. Get McKissick going. I think that's how you beat. That's the best chance we have, and running the ball is the best chance we have, because I don't think we're going to have time to go downfield routinely with
We
the
better
guys.
not plan on it. We better not come into the game with that as our primary focus and not come off of it, right? 100%. We need to have the game plan coming into next week that I think we all agree we should have had this week.
Well, I think, well, I try not to think anymore because it hurts watching
Amen.
this football team. But if I'm Ron Rivera, and we've kind of already touched on how Ron may not be Ron anymore, but if I'm Ron Rivera, Monday, I sit down with Scott Turner and I put the film on and I say, what should you have done on this play? And if Turner says exactly what I do, I look at him and I say, wrong, you should have run the ball. What should you have done on this next play? Run the ball. And Sunday, before they walk out of the tunnel, I expect Ron to look at Turner and go, you remember the conversation we had on Monday? Run the fucking football.
So what do you do if you're in Dallas's defensive coaching room right now? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to say they ain't running the ball on us. We're going to make Carson Wentz beat us.
Yep.
We are going to put 9 in the box and we're going to come after him and hope he falls apart.
Right. Well, but I'm going to put 9 in the box and I'm going to rush all 9 of them. Because I know somebody's going to get home before Carson lets the ball go, because Scott Turner can't draw up anything that doesn't go at least 25 yards.
That's the chess match. Unless we're playing checkers and they're playing chess, which it kind of looked like this last week, they're going to come in daring us to throw the ball. And we're going to have to find a way to do it competently that doesn't involve dropping 7 steps and waiting for something to develop. That ain't going to fly down there.
I think it goes way beyond like the scheme, and I think it's a gut check game. Like you have to go down there and say, no one thinks we can win this game. Everyone thinks our season's over. We got to smash them in the mouth, and we got to, you know what I'm saying? Because Dallas, and I said this last week about Philadelphia. Philadelphia came into FedEx knowing they were going to win the game, and then they came in and kicked our ass. So they came in overconfident, and they didn't even need to be. It's almost a must-win game. If we go 0-2 in the NFC East, hell, the Giants look better than we do right now.
You're right.
Just about everybody look better than we do right now.
One of these so-called quiet leaders that everybody's so proud of is going to have to step up on Sunday and be incredibly vocal and get in people's faces. I'll be honest. If I'm Terry McLaurin this week, I'm trying to figure out how to make the guys on this team afraid of disappointing me. You know what I'm saying? That's because we don't have, I think we said this last week, we don't have that guy right now. Or if we do, that guy is not highly visible to the fans.
We have one guy, in my opinion, that's like that, and that's John Allen.
Yeah, but
that's the only player on this team that other players are intimidated by. I don't think there's anybody else. I really don't.
Well, I mean, it only takes one if it's the right one, right? I mean, you look at the Ravens teams from years and years ago.
I was about to bring them up, Bob.
It
I was about
Ray
to bring
Lewis,
them up.
man.
It was. And I actually heard an interview. I don't remember where I heard an interview, but it was one of the guys on that offense. On the offense, came out and said, I did my job, because I knew if I didn't, I was going to have to face Ray Lewis in the locker room. And that scared me more than the coaches. That scared me more than anybody else.
And Tom Brady's teammates have been afraid of him forever too, because he would call him out, and he does the job, right? You can't be a loudmouth and not do your job, right?
That's right.
No,
maybe
I think
why we didn't hear much from Terry this week. I'm sure Terry looked at the tape of his performance on Monday and went, I did not do my job. Because he dropped at least 2. This is a really sure-handed guy. I mean, as a rookie, he led the leagues in not dropping balls, right? And he had, which brings me back to, it just feels like the entire team was out to lunch, except maybe Deron Payne and
Allen had a good game.
Duran had a good game. Benjamin St. Just had a good
I thought-
game.
No,
Yeah, I think
John Allen had a good game. If you watch the
Holcomb-
film,
Holcomb had
was-
his best game of the year, even though it was ugly overall.
who?
Holcomb.
Holcomb and St. Just had a good game. There was
Yeah.
one play where St. Just had his shirt picked, but the guy just held his arm, and all he could do was get his hand out, and just get in the way.
Yeah, we said this earlier. We had individuals playing hard, but these guys are not, they're not on the same page.
Right.
And I got to circle back around to it at some point. And John, you were talking about just needing, they came in here knowing they were going to win. That's a big part of it, is the attitude you come in with. But part of the reason you come in with that good attitude is because you're prepared and you're on the same page and you're all heading the same direction and know what you're doing, which it didn't look like
they were
our
playing
guys
at home.
did.
They were playing at their home stadium.
Yeah, well, we're playing in another road game this week. So
By the
let's
way, interesting schedule quirk. When was the last time we were playing two teams back to back on short weeks? Philly played the Monday night before we played them, and then Dallas would play the past Monday night.
Yeah.
We're normally playing teams when they get long weeks.
Yeah,
Yes.
usually it's the other direction where we're playing guys on
Didn't-
extended rest.
Didn't seem to hurt Philly, did it?
Yeah, it sure
Not
helped
for
us
a
this
second.
week. No, down in Dallas, they can't wait to get to this game. They can't wait to get to it. It's like we used to go into games way back. I'll show how old again, but before, when the Cardinals were still in the NFC East,
Oh,
we had our two wins a year. You couldn't wait for the Cardinals game because how bad are we going to kick their ass this time?
that was a get healthy game.
It was
No
a
matter
get
how
healthy
hurt you
game.
were, it was a get healthy game.
Yeah, well, we're that game to other teams right now, gentlemen. That's how they look at us, and deservedly, based on the effort we saw from the coaching on down to a whole lot of players who looked like they were in quicksand. I shouldn't say it out loud, but it's hard to imagine they could do a whole lot worse this week.
If Wentz plays next Sunday like he played this last Sunday, he won't be the week 5 starter.
Might
I'll
not.
predict that right now.
Might not. He might get broken. Wouldn't that be something if we end up back within the Taylor Heineke sweepstakes?
I'm sorry, John. I just think the only way he comes out the field is injury.
I agree.
I
Agree.
just whether I believe that he should be pulled off the field or not, I completely remove that from the equation. If there's one thing that Rivera and this team, this front office and these coaches have proven, it's the fact that when they believe in a guy, they believe in a guy, and there's nothing they can do. You know what I mean? They can't do any wrong.
I'll give you one exception that might prove the rule. They put Antonio Gibson effectively put his ass on the bench when he kept dropping the ball. Carson gets strip sacked another couple of times because he's holding the ball too long in traffic. That would irritate me enough as a coach to put him on the bench, at least for a while. And I'll say it again, John, what John and I were talking about. I've never had a problem with putting a quarterback on the bench, but you're not going to put Aaron Rodgers on the bench now because he's earned the right, and Tom Brady. Carson Wentz has not earned that right. He should be sat down just like Coach Gibbs sat Mark Rippon down. Remember, he had a 4-pick game.
Mm.
He sat him down for the rest of the day, and then the next week the guy came out and threw 5 touchdown passes, I think, against somebody. But anyway,
So, one thing I watched. I did not go back and watch the entire game. I just couldn't bring myself to do that. I watched the whole thing live on Sunday because, by God, it was the first live Washington game I had this season, and so I was there for all 60 minutes of it. Because, by God, that's my team, and it is what it is, right? But I did go back and watch somebody, and I forget who it is. The War Room puts up every quarterback pass on YouTube the following Monday, and so I went back and watched every single play by Carson Wentz. One of those fumbles on Philadelphia, he had 2 this weekend, and one of those, he had the ball this way. He had both hands on the football. And the defender just made a great play on the ball. He just made a great play on the ball. So, I mean, Carson was doing his due diligence to hang on to it. He was trying to get more yards. He was trying to get out of a bad situation. And the guy made a great play. The other one was the traditional, I'm going to throw the what ball? Where'd the ball go? Because the guy took it right off his palm. But
on the first one, was he in that bad position because he held the ball too long? And then
See,
he was
that's
trying to get
where-
out of it.
I'd have to
That's-
go back and look. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, there were a lot of green shirts around him, John. By that point in time, every play was just a jailbreak. That was the second fumble, I think.
Mhm.
And it was later in the game, and maybe that was middle of second quarter. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at it, and I will. But
Mark, there was another one I showed clips on the site on. Everybody has been crushing Wentz, and I watched him drop back, and at his third step, McLaurin's wide open. The defender's 5 yards behind him, and you can see it click with Wentz. Like you can see in his body language, he wants to throw the ball, but he's still retreating. It's like it was a 5-step drop, not a 3. Had it been a 3-step drop, the ball's out. It's a completion for 6 yards. Wentz then stutter steps for his 4th step to try to get his feet under him, and by the time he can set to throw it, the defenders reacted, and then he pulls the ball down. It's a sack. Everybody's crushing Wentz. You hold the ball. That ball's got to come out. I want to know, like, maybe Wentz made the wrong step cadence, but I can't believe a guy like Wentz is going to take too many steps. If that's not what the play call is for, if it's a 5-step drop. You know what I mean?
That's fair, Derek. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying that this was all on Wentz. I mean, I've talked about how our offensive line was
there's
just,
a big part. Don't get me wrong.
but there were several where clearly watching the flow of play in the NFL, the quarterback. I mean, we've been watching football our entire lives. You get a sense when a guy drops back when that ball needs to be out. And too many times I saw it wasn't.
He
That's all I'm
acknowledged that.
saying.
Wentz himself acknowledged that. He said, you don't have that many sacks happen, but just because of the O-line. It doesn't happen just because of that.
And that was John Beck territory, right? Beck got sacked 10 times against Buffalo. This was kind of like that.
And I think that Wentz deserves criticism, but I also ask, and I don't know. I've never been in the meeting rooms, so I don't know what the play call is.
Yep.
But I also wonder if we're calling plays that are in a development level where Wentz is instructed to take a 5 to 7 step drop, and by the time he gets back there, it's too late.
That's entirely possible, and I'm sure that was part of it, Derek. I know there were plays like that where you could just see it coming, and that's not on Wentz. I agree. That's either on an OL, it's not doing its job, or it's just on
bad play design.
bad play calling and
Right.
bad.
I wonder, because how many times, honestly, can the 3 of you guys remember ever seeing Wentz audible?
Doesn't look like he does.
So I wonder where's the leash on that. Is
I
he
have not
told
heard
the
any
play call, the
Omahas.
play call, you're gonna run the damn play call? You
I don't
what
know.
I
I
mean?
would love to hear somebody ask that.
I mean,
I would
even
love to hear
Heineke
Simon
had
personally ask that.
even Heineke had the ability to audible last year a couple of times, as I recall. I remember a touchdown with McKissick.
Or he just did, knowing Heineke.
Well, yeah, I remember that a touchdown to McKissick where whoever it was in the booth said that is all Taylor Heineke right there, because he handed the ball off. He's like, if you look at the way they are set up pre-snap, this is supposed to be a pass play.
I think that was that Atlanta game. I think I know.
That may be it. He's like, and Heineke sees what he wants to see, and he moves. He switches this to a run play, and he hands off to McKissick, who walks in untouched.
So
And-
I wonder how much of that plays into that. How much freedom does Wentz have, where when he gets to the line and where multiple people in chat are barking and screaming and yelling, "Hey, look at this! Look at this! Look at this!" But then the play call doesn't go there. There was a play this past week. Terry McLaurin had a DB in his face, and you could tell there was no deep safety. At that point, all bets are off. I'm audibling. You're running a fade. Run as fast as you can. I'll throw it 60. You just go run under the damn thing. You know, where's the luxury? Is it Wentz has the ability to do that and he didn't? Or is it that he's been told, you do not change the play at the line of scrimmage? This is the play call.
Or his pre-snap thought is don't get sacked again.
That's true. Or he's not
I mean,
reading.
you know.
I mean, I don't know. None of us know. We've never been in the meeting room. But Wentz is not a stupid guy. I've watched Wentz audible his way through a victory against us, where every time we think we have him beat, he steps up, he moves up, he's pointing at the linebacker, he's putting the guy in motion. Next thing you know, he's going for 70. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Wentz is stupid. I don't think Turner's stupid. I just think he's stubborn. And I am curious, where is that that line of demarcation about
I
where
don't think Turner is stupid, and I agree that he's stubborn, but worse than that, I think Turner's got the exact same level of play calling feel that Griffin had pocket presence. He has no ability to read the game whatsoever on the fly while it's happening. He does not feel the way the game is going. He's got his plan, and that is what he's going to do. And frankly, later in his career, Norv was the same way. I mean, we all remember the comment, what we do works, when we all could see it wasn't working. We could all see it. We all watched it every Sunday. It wasn't working, but Norv stubbornly clung to what I do works. Well, it did when he was younger, and he had more sense for, hey, you know what? Let's just shift this over here a little bit, and let's do that over there a little bit, and take advantage of this thing.
He also had Troy Aikman throw into
You're not wrong.
to
He
Michael
also-
Irvin,
you're
and
not
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
But you know, I would argue that when you've got those three guys, that's when you can dictate to the defense.
Yeah.
When you don't have those three guys is when you have to take what the defense is giving you and figure out and you know, kind of, yeah. And there's none of the D at the moment.
I have to share this because what we were just talking about, and I'm actually very intrigued, Derek, about the audible thing, because I hadn't really thought about that. But now that I'm picturing the way we've played these three games, I don't know that I've seen Carson standing at the line clearly changing a play yet. Listen to the title of this article I just pulled up. Carson Wentz's audibles pre-snap reads reminiscent of Peyton Manning, said Philadelphia Eagles coach Doug Peterson. This is back from October 2017. Most impressive thing about Carson so far is his ability to make pre-snap reads and change plays at the line of scrimmage. He was very, very high on him.
So, I mean, is it not a factor that the guy has been in 3 games with this team that maybe it's not, I don't know how much time with the players and time with the playbook and time with the coaches it takes to feel comfortable changing the play at the line over and over again in a game. I mean, I have to think that might be a factor, and that it's not that he's unwilling, or I just don't know. I do think we undervalue the challenge of coming to a brand new team.
Well, we don't, because I know we talked about that we all talked about that before the season ever started, that we're not going to get a finished product from day one with this offense. Clearly, we're just not going to happen. The new quarterback with a reshuffled offensive line without our tight ends, yada, yada, yada.
And the week 10 Carson Wentz probably looks very different than the week 2 Carson Wentz.
Yeah, and they went against arguably one of the, well, maybe the hottest team in the NFL this side of Miami this week. So all of those are factors.
That's a great place to ask this question. And I think, John, you asked it on the board. If you can make one change this week to the coaching staff, is it Jack Del Rio or is it Scott Turner?
I didn't ask that question because I thought that was a ridiculous question, but
It was Derek.
It was Paul.
No,
Paul.
it wasn't me. It wasn't.
I think Paul took this week's loss hard. We love you, Paul.
Yeah,
Harder than even.
Well, I mean, if you have to answer the question, I mean, the real question there is, who are you most concerned is going to be unable to dig out or make adjustments? Is it Turner or Del Rio? And at this point, simply based on the fact that Del Rio's been doing this for 25 years, I don't think he's changing his spots. I just don't. So I would be more likely to make that change. I'd still like to think that Scott Turner is young enough to be adaptable and maybe stick and move a little bit.
And the other thing with that is that we've seen Scott Turner's offense effective. We've seen it work. As critical as I am of Scott Turner, and believe me, I don't like the guy. I can't. A lot of my bullseyes are on him. But we've watched that offense, and my frustration with him is less about knowledge and understanding and more about, the in the moment, like Bob said, and the ability to scheme up a game. I feel like Jack Del Rio, that guy for 2.5 years, we've watched our defenses be the worst in the league when it comes to explosive plays, but nothing changes. You know what I mean? Like, we had to wait, as we've beat this dead horse enough times with the Landon Collins situations. Why are we not using Jamin Davis when he's effective, how he's effective, all of these things? I don't. It's like the old from Remember the Titans, where he says we run what did he say? It's not the veer, not remember. We are Marshall. We run the veer. You know, it's just like Novocaine. Eventually, it'll just work. You're right. Like it's not gonna work. Like stop it, right? Like you can't keep doing it. That was Remember the Titans, but
Doesn't matter. It's a great quote.
It is a great quote.
right. So
I
I think
So-
Turner is more capable of ingenuity. I think Del Rio is too
Yeah,
stuck.
so
that
has the
it's-
defense, I'm just gonna play devil's advocate here. Has the defense held the last two teams basically almost scoreless in the second half, 2 games in a row, and we couldn't muster 25 points last
Well,
weekend?
yes is the
Our
answer.
offense has only shown up for 6 quarters.
No, and I'm
Yeah,
not,
but
I'm
hold
not
on,
gonna,
John.
I'm not
So
gonna
it
defend
is
the
not-
off.
I'm telling you, it's not our defense that's killing us.
Hold on, but
right now.
John,
wasn't the
you know
question,
why
though.
you know why they held in the second half last week? Because they gave up 22 in the second quarter. And
Nate.
look, the offense is not helping.
So
You asked
Philly
me-
wasn't trying to score in the second half, is that what you're
They were a
suggesting?
whole
No, I'm
lot
not
less
saying that.
concerned.
They
They
didn't-
were,
right. They
they-
weren't as
I
worried
get
about
it, but nevertheless,
And John, against Detroit. Against Detroit, we brought that game within 8. And then what did Detroit do? Oh, guess what? Now we're going to score 2 more. That's what they did. They went
whenever
from
they
just-
needed it.
I
Like-
get it. Well, you guys die on that hill.
Well,
I'm
no,
not
John, but
dying
the
on the hill.
question
That's like
was,
saying our offense looks great. You know why we score in the fourth quarter? Because we can't score in any other quarter. It's not because we're great in the fourth quarter. I hate to tell you,
Well,
but
here,
the
let
Jags
me-
game is the only game we came out and looked like an effective offense.
You're
Briefly.
right, and I didn't say I told you I'm not going to die on.
Well,
Scott
I think it's a
Turner's
dumb
hill.
question anyway.
I think it is kind of a dumb philosophical, but if you were to make one decision today that I think changes the trajectory of this team over the next 13 and a half, 14 games that we have left, I think Jack Del Rio is the bigger change.
And John, I don't think it's a dumb question. This team, the entire team, was not ready to play on Sunday.
It's a dumb question because it's not going to happen.
Well, that's
Well,
true.
no, we know it's not going to happen because Ron
Well, then, I
Rivera
mean, if you
will
just-
die on that hill.
We're
Ron
just,
Rivera is
playing
absolutely
circle
going to
jerk.
die on the hill of loyalty to guys that are not
The big-
performing.
The biggest change that you could make is not on the poll, which is Ron Rivera.
Except
because-
no, that's not the biggest change you can make. In the NFL, the biggest change you can make is either coordinator. I will argue this point all day long. The head coach is a figurehead in most teams. They set
On
the
bad
tone
teams,
for
maybe.
the organization.
On bad teams,
if
not
you're
on
letting,
good teams.
if you're letting a head coach go during the regular season, then that
it's a lost
regime,
season.
It's-
that re-
I'm not
that re-
suggesting that. I'm just.
No,
I mean,
John,
it's
let
a
me-
Stupid question.
okay, so yeah, it's a stupid question. The mental exercise was, which of the 2 coordinators do you have more? This is the way I understood it. Which one do you think, if you had to keep one of the 2 right now, which would you keep? That's kind of the way I was coming at it. And my answer to that was, I don't think that Jack Del Rio is going to change his stripes now. And I think it ain't working into year 3. We're seeing the same thing. That's where I am with that. I also think it's not a realistic question because we're not going to fire either of those guys.
Mm-mm.
I'm just trying to wrap my brain around the idea. If you're going to die on a hill with one of those 2 guys, who are you going in with? That's all it was. It's the kind of thing you talk about when your team is 1 and 2
I'm-
and just
I'm
got their
running
ass
away.
kicked.
I'm deserting. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm not dying on the hill.
well,
But
live to fight another day.
I'm a conscientious coordinator objector.
to be
All right,
fair, I
Marine.
think everybody on this podcast can agree with we don't want firing. We want success. We want to
Yeah.
be successful with the guys that are in place now because we want to see our team win. That is one thing that people get frustrated. Well, are you a hater? I'm not a hater. I want Scott Turner to be good. That's why I'm so damn critical. Why do I want him to be good? Because he's the coordinator of
I
my
get
favorite
it.
football team.
So what happens on Sunday, gentlemen? Let's get to it. Who's got something?
I
Here,
mean,
I'll
that's
start
gonna be-
with,
I feel like they're gonna win. I feel like they're gonna win because we're really gonna be in a hole if we don't steal one here. And I know it's only one game, but you know what happens every year we don't make the playoffs because of only one game. At some point, you got to win a game that you're not favored to win. And we're not going to be favored to win many of them. So you better hope I'm right about that. I just feel like Dallas has to feel really confident. They don't have Dak. I don't think it's the strongest Dallas team that we've faced in the last few years. The defense is good, but I think they don't have a lot of weapons on offense, and they don't have their starting quarterback. And we need desperately to win a game, especially a division game. So I'm going to pick us to win, even though I feel insane saying that.
I'm going to read, since our brother Paul could not be with us tonight. For those of you who tune in to see Paul, sorry about that, but next week, hopefully he's back with us. He messaged to say, for the record, he says the Commanders keep it close in a lower scoring game at Dallas and give a more competitive effort. 17. I have a hard time disagreeing with that. I think that we'll know by the third offensive possession based on if we're giving Carson Wentz a chance to throw and whether we see Carson Wentz looking like he wants to play a football game or if he's looking for a place to hide like he did last week. I think we're going to know. I feel a little bit better about this one than I did against Philly. I think we might match up better in this game. I didn't think we had a chance at Philly, and it turned out we didn't. I think we have a chance in this one. I don't think I can pick us to win, but I think this is going to be a pretty close game, and it's going to be that typical NFC East thing where it comes down to 1 or 2 plays in the fourth quarter. I'm going to give the nod to Dallas because they're at home and their defense is the best of the 4 units on the field. So I'm going to go with the Dallas in a close one. I don't know that I've got a score in me, but 26-20.
I think, believe it or not, I think we pull this one out, and dare I say it's a somewhat convincing win. Now, I don't mean we win it like double digits. I don't think we win, it's not going to be a 35-10 game, but I wonder with Carson. So Wentz, I'm looking at his history against the Cowboys, and honestly, it really doesn't matter because Mike Nolan was the defensive coordinator the last time he played against them. But he's 4-4. He's got a 67% completion percentage against that team. A lot of those guys are still on the team. I think he's kind of familiar with some of the defensive players of the Dallas Cowboys because he did play against them for quite a while, especially some of the aging vets. I'm gonna think. I think we put up some points, and I think we get back into that high 20s range, maybe 28, 23, and it's a late touchdown to get them to 23, and we ended up either recovering an onside kick or something late. But for some reason, I got a feeling that we're gonna, somehow, I'd call it a tingle or play or what, but I think we end up winning this game, and I think it's kind of surprising at how comfortable we feel throughout the course of it.
Amen, brother. Hope you're right.
I guess that's me, isn't it? I think Dallas is going to come out and do to us what we said we should have done to Philadelphia. Monday night against New York, they ran the ball 30 times. They threw the ball 31 times. They ran the ball for 176 yards for 5.9 yards per carry. To no one's surprise, Tony Pollard averaged twice as many yards per carry as Zeke. He's the guy that scares me. Cooper Rush was 21 of 31 for 215. No INTs, 1 touchdown. I think they're going to do the same thing. And I think Jack Del Rio is going to come out in that stupid 4-2-5, and Tony Pollard's going to have a heyday. And I think Dallas wins this game 24-14. And I'm afraid that 14 is being optimistic because I think Micah Parsons is going to be inside Carson Wentz jockstrap pretty much all night long.
Too.
And when he's not, Tavon Diggs is going to have a handful of football going the other way.
Parsons is special. There aren't too many guys who can take over games in the NFL these days. He's one of them
Now-
in his second year.
Interestingly enough, if you watched Monday night, Micah Parsons didn't have a sack. They sacked Daniel Jones 5 times. The guy doing the damage was Lawrence. Lawrence had 3 of those 5.
Think Sam Cosmi's ready?
I don't know. Sam Cosmi is on the injury report today. Was
course he is.
was he limited or
No, Rivera. Somebody asked, or no, Cosme. He was, yeah, because he went down with a knee,
Limited.
right?
Yeah, but he was
I think-
he was one of 4 starters off that line on the injury report, and all of those guys were either limited or DNP.
Yeah, but I actually read up. Apparently, Leno was a vet day.
Yeah, I think Leno was the only one that didn't practice. The others were limited. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure of that.
So I think we turn in a more respectable performance than we did against Philadelphia, but I still think it's pretty obvious that, we're the second best team on the field.
Yeah, I'm with you. It would have been awful nice to have young Mr. Robinson available these last 3 weeks, huh? Come back, brother. He's doing better. I mean, I saw another little video today, right? He's at practice and he's moving and all that. I'm really happy that this kid's going to get a chance to play this year. It looks like.
I'm actually thinking he might get a chance to play next week. He can come
might.
back after 4 weeks, right?
I believe that's the case because he was IR'd with designated, or I think it was NFI'd.
Yep, he was NFI.
NFI pup. So I think he's eligible to return. I believe we probably hear Tuesday. Either he's returning or there's a timeline. Right now,
So-
Rivera keeps saying no timeline, no timeline, no timeline. But I think a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, they need to not rush the kid back, right? They
Yeah, I
need to
think-
be damn sure that he's ready to go, but
I think part of that-
just that he'll be back on the field likely this season even is pretty remarkable. And I feel good about that for him. And oh yeah, as a fan of the team, it's going to be nice to have a guy back there who teams are going to respect as a running back when we line up in 1st and 10.
So guys, I got a quick flash poll question to close us out tonight. Black uniforms, hot or not?
Hold on. So let me respond to that. And I'm glad you brought it up. How the hell are we wearing black before we even wear our stupid burgundy jerseys? It makes no sense to me. We had 2 home games. We haven't seen burgundy yet. We're freaking black. It's dumb as hell. On the road at 1:00 on a stupid. Sorry.
What is it? Black and bold. They're calling
I
it?
don't know, Garrick, but I'd rather think about that than who our mascot's going to be. So I'll just leave it at that.
Well,
I
the
don't know,
poll was a month ago. You think they haven't it's like it's Florida voting again.
I'm not a fan of I mean, all right, I like the way the black uniforms look. I think they look really good. Having said that, I'm not a fan of that whole third uni idea. I'm really not. I would rather have a white top and a burgundy top and say, fuck it, this is what we're wearing and be done with it. However, if they come out on Sunday in those black uniforms and positively light Cowboys Stadium on fire, I'm going to campaign for them to wear the uniforms the entire
Every
rest of the
game.
damn season.
Every
I'd
day.
rather have black and burgundy as our 2 uniforms and just say to hell with the whites. Those things are so ugly.
I think you're right.
I'm not a fan of all single color uniforms largely anyway. That might be a function of when I grew up. But all I can think is that this is yet another opportunity for us to look stupid, to come out with these great fancy black uniforms and get rolled, 34-10. And people will be like, well, at least they had good new uniforms, but I'm with Bob. If we come out and win in it, then I think that's a wonderful idea, but I ain't holding my breath.
I dig the black. I'm not afraid to say it. And I tell you the reason I dig it is
I
we
like
changed
the
our
idea.
franchise name. We changed our franchise name. Just go with it, man. It's a new
I
franchise.
love the idea of a black uniform. You know what else? What I would have loved? If you got a matte burgundy jersey, get a matte black jersey with the logo on it. That's all you got to do. Why? They're
I
holding.
love the W on the front, and I love the DC flag and gold on the back. I think it's cool.
So why don't you do the matte black helmet with the matte black face mask with the
I don't know,
W the same way that it is on your hat currently, and continue with the burgundy. That's the one thing I don't like about the
The
black.
team, the
There's no
team
burgundy
doesn't have,
represented.
the team doesn't have time to spend worrying about uniforms. They're too busy plotting up game plans to win games for us.
That's all right.
Yeah, well, I love you guys, man. And I'll tell you what, we deserve some sort of an award for doing this. I'm just
We
saying.
deserve, yes, God, for any Washington fans that are still out there, God bless you.
We're hanging with you, man. We're here. We're trying, but
And there's
we need
there's
help.
still we can try to way either therapeutically or whatever to try to drum up a little bit of hope.
Kermit the Frog once said, "It ain't easy being green, but
That's
it's
right.
a hell of a lot easier than being burgundy and gold." That's all.
Yeah,
I'm
no
saying.
shit.
All
There ought
right,
to be
boys.
a-
I love you
there ought to
guys.
be a
Thank you.
t-shirt.
All right,
We
guys.
we'll see what happens. Join us for the BGO chat on Sunday, and hopefully we'll have some good things to report on.